And now to the war between Israel and Hamas. The Peace Now organization says Israel has now approved the largest seizure of land in the occupied West Bank. That's the other side from Gaza. You see the Gaza Strip there. And then the West Bank, the other occupied territory where Palestinians live. And this is the largest seizure, according to this nonprofit group Peace Now, in over 3 decades. It's a move that could grow the number of Israeli settlers in that designated Palestinian area and worsen the already soaring tensions in that region. This comes as Israeli Defense Forces have called for the largest evacuation order in southern Gaza since the war began in October. The World Health Organization says one of Gaza's largest hospitals in the south is now completely empty. ABC's chief national correspondent Matt Gutman is in Tel Aviv, Israel, with more. So, Matt, let's begin with your latest reporting of Israel assassinating a top commander in Hezbollah on yet a third front, that northern front with Lebanon. Tell us about it.
It happened this afternoon, Terry, at least here locally. Israel using a drone, apparently, to assassinate Mohammed Ni'Mah Nasser. He was a top commander in sort of the western part of their front with Israel. Probably one of the top 2 people that Israel has assassinated since Hezbollah began firing upon Israel shortly after the October 7th war began last year. And it's been this war of attrition, this sort of simmering war cross-border since then. And both sides have said they are very close to the brink of an all-out war, which we know would be devastating. But Israel, interestingly, actually took credit for this, which means they want everybody to know that they did it. Hezbollah responded by firing around 100 rockets in about 3 hours, which is a significant number. We haven't seen that very often since that war began in October 8th. And everybody here is on tenterhooks because, on the one hand, there is a ceasefire peace deal, if you will, that the U.S. has brokered that is basically agreed to by both sides, the broad parameters at least. Hezbollah says it cannot sign it until Israel enters into a ceasefire in Gaza with Hamas. And on the other hand, both say that they're at a tipping point. They either go to war soon or they broker this ceasefire deal, but nobody knows which one will happen, Terry.
Right, so that is the story of a potentially wider war, which we're hearing here in Washington. The U.S. government expects this to widen. But let's get back to Gaza and the humanitarian and military situation there. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, evacuation orders in Gaza, just these huge sweeping evacuation orders for people who've already been displaced from one place to another. It also sounds like they're more urgent. So what message is the IDF setting? What's happening there?
Just before I answer that, I think it's important to bounce on what you just said, because you said something interesting, and that the U.S. expects that it might happen, and that's what we're getting here from Israeli officials. They say that there's about, if you're a betting person, about a 30% probability that diplomacy will work between Israel and Hezbollah. And that means there's about a 70% chance that they could go to war. Hezbollah, by the way, vastly more powerful than Hamas in Gaza. As you mentioned, Israel ordering the evacuation of hundreds of thousands of people. We were driving in the northern part of the Gaza Strip today and saw fighting outside the Shejaiya neighborhood just outside Gaza City. It was incredibly intense. Smoke billowing into the sky. We saw a surface-to-air missile being fired at an Israeli helicopter. Israel firing back with artillery and missiles and bombs. So that is one segment of the fighting. The other is in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, near Han Yunis, where about 250,000 people have been ordered to flee. And the images we're seeing, Terry, is of people sleeping in the streets because they don't know where to go. So many of these people have been displaced serially, 3, 4, 5 times at this place, that they don't know where to go anymore. And obviously there is still a significant concern in the Gaza Strip about hunger. It's hard to find food, and the food that there is exceedingly expensive at this point. So even though Israel says it's about wrapping up its campaign, at least the intensive fighting phase, it doesn't seem to be that close to being over at this point, Terry.
It sure doesn't, Matt. Matt Gutman, as always, thank you for your reporting on the ground there from the war between Israel and Hamas.